Hello, hello. Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Rebecca, and we are back. We are so back. We are not only back with another speed build, this time we're building a Southern craftsman style home for the Pancakes household in Newcrest, but we're also back with audio commentary. Yay! My plan was always to do audio commentary for my videos for this channel, but I always had some kind of excuse like I don't have anything to talk about, or the AC is on and it's too loud. But it's summer now and the AC is going to be on for the next 2 to 3 months. And the truth is, I do have things to talk about. I was just a little bit intimidated by the microphone. I still am a bit, but the truth is, I have running commentary in my head permanently, especially when I'm building in The Sims 4. So my original intention with this channel was always to talk about my builds. That's something that I really love with other Sims 4 YouTubers. It's my favorite thing, actually, is listening to other people talk about their builds. So that's something that I really want to share, so no more excuses. I am going to tell you about this build now. So I mentioned this was for the Pancakes household, and we are building for them in the Newcrest neighborhood. This is actually for my save file project, which is called the Blue Save File. I've been working on it for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I'm actually not quite sure when I first started because I wasn't uploading the builds on the gallery right away. But one of the very first households that I built for was for the Pancakes, which I think is pretty typical when you're doing a save file with the original townies. But I remodeled their home in Willow Creek, and I had a bit of a break from my save file project. Simply put, my computer crashed, and I didn't have access to any of my files for about 6 or 7 months. So when I got back into the save file, I wasn't very happy with the remodel that I did for them in Willow Creek, so I decided to move them out to Newcrest and build them a brand new home. And in my save file, Newcrest is kind of inspired by kind of the inland areas of Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama. This street that we're building on in particular is really inspired by the Southern craftsman kind of brick homes that you see in those areas, and even more specifically inspired by the HGTV show Hometown, which I love watching. And a lot of the homes that I'm going to have in this neighborhood are going to be inspired by what I've seen on that show. They're not necessarily my favorite style of homes, but I do think that they do incredible renovations on that show. And I really love Erin's style. The fact that she's not afraid of color and uses wallpaper and all that kind of stuff is really lovely. But this home is for the Pancakes, and I don't think Eliza has as much style as Erin. So this is a little bit more cookie cutter. The idea is that this home has been renovated, so it will have a new kitchen and new bathroom furnishings, but it still retains the original craftsman style in it. And I want to talk a little bit more about my save file before I talk about the build. So I mentioned that Newcrest is kind of inspired by the southeast and kind of inland, whereas Willow Creek is a little bit more coastal, and Magnolia Promenade, I think, is also more of a coastal location. So those are definitely going to remain connected, which I think is a pretty common theme in save files. So I'll be doing that. And my idea for the Pancakes moving out here is that the home that they had in Willow Creek was probably just a little bit too much maintenance. It's an old historic home. This one's a little bit newer. I can imagine that they racked up a lot of costs keeping up a historic home out there. And my story for the Pancakes is that Bob, 10 years ago, was on a reality TV show. I think it would be something like MasterChef, where you kind of live in a house with your castmates and you cook. And I think he became famous for wearing his iconic red robe. and just being like a grumpy guy who's really funny and sarcastic. And he became a bit of a meme, a bit of a internet icon. But that star has kind of been fading. He's still cooking, he's still a chef, but he's kind of retained a few fans and he streams. I'm gonna build him a man cave later on in the video. And so I think he spends a lot of time on his computer streaming for his dedicated, small but dedicated fan base. Maybe not as focused on cooking as he was before, and kind of getting stuck in that room, living in the past and not really living in the present, which I think is probably why their marriage will be strained in this save file. I know that there's a lot of interpretations for the Pancakes. I think it's really interesting, actually, the different directions that people take this family. Some people want them to have a really good marriage. Some people think that they're both queer and like a lavender marriage, which I think is really interesting and fun. And some people think that they are mismatched and shouldn't be married, and that it makes sense that they have a poor relationship. And in my save file, they definitely don't have a strong relationship. I do think that they are very different people, but I think they're also very constrained by traditional gender roles, and that they would never admit that their marriage isn't working the way that it's supposed to. One of the things I wanted to represent in this build is that they only have one bedroom. In the original Willow Creek home that they had two separate bedrooms, which I think makes sense, but I think it's more realistic that their marriage is strained because they can't admit that they shouldn't be sleeping in the same bedroom. So I've got an inflatable bed in Bob's man cave, and in my save file, I have assigned that bed to Bob. So that's where he sleeps. They have different hygiene levels. They have different sleep schedules. I imagine Bob, with his career, he probably works really late, comes home really late. Eliza has just a normal office job, so their sleep schedules are different, and I can just imagine that that would put a huge strain on their relationship. So in my save file, they don't have a good relationship. It might be fun to try to fix it, but they're trying their best. They adopted a dog, so I added a dog to their household, but I think it's kind of a last-ditch effort to mend the relationship by getting a pet and hoping that that will kind of distract them from the problems that they have. So that's kind of the direction that I'm taking this particular household in. As far as their furnishings are concerned, here I'm working on Bob's man cave. So I've got him the streamer desk that's from the, not early access, but the early purchase perk from getting high school years. So that is an official EA item, but unfortunately it's no longer available even if you buy the pack, but it definitely fit the room. I'm giving him some LED strips, red, obviously, because that's his color. And yeah, this is where he's going to be spending the majority of his time. Down here is the bedroom, which is very neat and boring. I don't think Eliza is a boring character, but I think she has very basic, boring taste. I don't think that she likes color all that much, aside from like a minty, fresh green and some blues, but she's definitely not adventurous when it comes to her interior design. She's a very classic, traditional lady. I mentioned that they only have one bedroom, but there is room to expand if you want to. There is a storage room on the second floor that could easily be pushed out and made into another bedroom. So if you decide that they will continue their marriage and maybe have kids, there's definitely room to grow in this home. And now on the screen is probably my favorite part of the build, which is the primary bathroom, which is right off of Eliza's bedroom. I ended up doing a walk-in shower. It's just one tile, but it is functional. I did play test it. And I used those new counters that we got in a base game update within the past year, as well as the windows from Businesses and Hobbies. And it just looks so fantastic. Again, this is not my style. This is not my dream bathroom, but I think it fits Eliza really well, and it fits the style of the home really well. And I was really happy with that. I've already used that motif from the bathroom in other builds that I'll be doing on this street. So yeah, I was really pleased with that. The items that we've gotten recently have been really high quality. The sleek bathroom, businesses and hobbies, the items from these packs are really great, and it's so much fun to build bathrooms now that we've got items like that in the game, not needing custom content for those who can't use it. So that I'm really happy with. We're kind of working on Eliza's office and the living room here. I imagine she locks the door for Bob for her office. And I think I might add a curtain to the French doors to her office because I think she'd want full privacy when she's in there. She probably works a lot from home. I'm thinking about giving her the workaholic trait from Snowy Escape. I think that's pretty fitting. I think she definitely gets lost in her work and uses it as an excuse to not work on her relationships. But it is a very cute office. That rug is from Businesses and Hobbies as well, and the rug in the living room is from Growing Together. I use those rugs from Growing Together in just about every single home that I build that isn't modern. They are really pretty. I love the texture on them. The improvements from the rugs that we got when the game launched are huge, and they feel so carpety now, and it's very satisfying. I'm still very new to using tool mod. I'm definitely a novice, but I'm trying my best to use it when necessary to achieve the looks that I want, and it was very useful here for moving those lights around on the wall. But again, I'm still very new to it, so this is the extent of my skills with that mod. I've added Bob's figurine and his poster back there. Those would be from when he was on the reality TV show and he became a meme, and I'm guessing his fans sent him those items. They probably made them custom back in the day. And now we're placing his inflatable bed, and that is where he sleeps. We're adding some mess on the floor. I did have to move that clutter pile. He wasn't able to get into the bed when I put it there, but I put it next to the armchair, and for some reason he's able to sit in the armchair just fine, even with the clutter next to it. So I moved that after player testing it, and he's also got a mini fridge and a microwave, so he doesn't have to go down to the kitchen and make it all dirty. Even though he is a chef, I imagine that he doesn't do much cooking at home. He prefers to just do it at work, and he gets a little bit burnt out and tired when he comes home, and he just wants to be in his room and watch streams or chat with his fans, heat up some corn dogs. Yeah, I imagine that's probably how he lives. In the kitchen, those counters are also from the base game update. I use the same swatch as I did in the bathroom. I imagine that when this home was renovated, they just used the same cabinetry for the bathrooms and the kitchen. And then I'm adding some gym equipment to the storage room. At the end of the video, I do switch that out for the weights machine, which Bob originally had in the Willow Creek home. So I added that back so that he can work out when he wants to. I'm adding some robes to the bathroom. Bob gets his iconic red robe, and just doing a little bit of detailing with the towels and stuff like that here. And then finally, we're moving on to always my favorite part of any video, which is the landscaping. It's very basic here. I didn't go too detailed, but there was a lot of it. I'm adding a little bit of dirt underneath the pathways and the shrubbery. And then we're just gonna add some hydrangeas, rocks, shrubbery. It's just going to be very basic, nothing complicated. In my game right now, in my save file, it's autumn, so the screenshots that you'll see at the end of the video are gonna be autumnal, but it does look very nice in the summer. Everything is very full and lush and green, which I love. So one of the main reasons that I moved the Pancakes to Newcrest, aside from having a story, this mostly came from the fact that I had a break from my save file, as I mentioned earlier. When my computer crashed, I kind of dragged my feet on getting my computer checked to see if my files could be recovered. And I waited 7 months, and it turns out that I was able to get my files recovered, which was fantastic. Of course, the lesson that you learn is that you should always back up your saves, back them up before an update, and then back them up externally regularly so you don't lose your progress. I'm very happy I was able to get my stuff back. But of course, when you step away from a creative project and you look at it later, you come back with fresh eyes. And I was not very happy, like I said, with the remodel that I did for the Willow Creek home that they had. And unfortunately, that's how I feel about a lot of the stuff that I originally did for the save file over a year ago. So a lot of the families and townies that I originally had builds for, I am either remodeling my remodel or I'm moving them to a new location. So one of those families is the Price family. I'm working on a home that I think I'm gonna move them into, but I built them kind of a suburban style home, and it just wasn't sitting right. It didn't really fit what I had in mind for them in terms of the style that I think the parents would have. So that one I'm going to be updating. I did a remodel or a rebuild of the Goth Manor, and I have been remodeling that remodel for the last couple of weeks, and I'm still not quite happy with it. It's definitely getting better. I was originally trying to do a black and white, 2010 style that I think Bella would have been really into, but now it feels even more dated and isn't as classic and traditional as I think that they would have. So I've gone back and fixed a lot in that house, and it does look a lot better, but I haven't been recording it, but I might share some tours of some of the builds that I've done, just because I did so many builds before I started recording. And you will be seeing a lot more of the Blue save file on this channel because it is, again, a big project that I've been working on for a while. And it's kind of a huge motivation for me to build. And I'm pretty happy with a lot of the lore and stories that I've been working on. Something that I'm really excited about is my land grab lore. And I will be rebuilding their home entirely at some point, but I have added family members. I've connected families that you wouldn't expect to be connected. So that story is growing with every passing month, and I'm really excited to share more of that once I have some more details fleshed out there. Just adding some small clutter here. Eliza's bathroom is very minimal, not very cluttered. Bob has a bunch of stuff on his counter, not surprisingly. I actually imagine that the hairdryer that he has on the counter, he uses to dry his armpits. I imagine he's gaming and then he goes into the bathroom and he needs to cool down, and he just sticks it under his armpits to cool down from a heated gaming session. They do have a garage that is also full to the brim with a bunch of stuff. This is, I think, probably Bob's stuff that Eliza doesn't want in the house. So I imagine before they got married that he had the heart bed and that she hates it, but he didn't want to get rid of it. So the compromise was that they keep it in the garage. But of course, when your garage is full of stuff, you can't keep your car in there. So I imagine Eliza is resentful of that part too. But there's a lot of fun stuff that you can pull out if they ever have people over. There's a ping pong table, there's a foosball table, darts, so those things can be pulled out if you ever throw a party on this lot. On the left-hand side, you can see that there is already another build next to this home. This was actually the original Southern Craftsman style home that I built. It wasn't originally for this save file. I built it in the interim in between my computer crashing and my files being recovered. But once I placed it in this save file, that kind of made it clear to me that that was the direction that I could go for this part of Newcrest. And that build is already available on the gallery. It's called Southern Craftsman home, I think. And it is move-in ready, so it's unfurnished, but it does have a complete kitchen and bathroom. And that is kind of the style that inspired this home, again, also inspired by Hometown. And at this very last part here, I am fixing the roofing. I was adding a balcony because the proportions for the second floor just weren't sitting right. So I am adding a balcony that will be accessible. I'll add a door in just a little bit, and fixing the roofing so it doesn't clip through, because when you put half walls through a roof, it doesn't treat it like a full walls room, so you can't have any roof coming through it. But yeah, it definitely looks a lot more like the image that I had in mind. I was also looking at a reference image on Google just for inspiration for the shape of the house. And yeah, Bob does get a balcony. He probably never goes out there, but he does get a balcony. He's got huge blackout blinds over that side of the room, so he doesn't really enjoy the view. And I bet Eliza resents that too. And that's about it. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.